We're going to look at some tools that the government can use to promote price stability, full employment, economic growth. So first off, we have monetary policy, and this is the Federal Reserve controlling the money supply. The Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and so during times of recession, what the Federal Reserve can do, they have a few things that they have as far as tools to try and deal with the recession. The first one is to lower the reserve requirement. And that reserve requirement, when people deposit money in the banks are required to keep a certain percentage in reserve, and then they loan the rest out, and that's how money is created. So in times of recession, when we need to get money injected into the economy, the Federal Reserve will lower that reserve requirement and let the banks loan out more money than than they would normally be able to loan out. Another tool that the Federal Reserve has is to lower interest rates. And so in times of recession, again, the goal is to get money out into circulation. When we lower the interest rates, there's more of an incentive to borrow, less of an incentive to save. And the third tool that the Federal Reserve has is to buy bonds, buy back bonds. And so what happens is, once again, if they are buying them, they give you some sort of incentive to sell those back to them. So higher interest rates. So what they would do is they would have the bond, and once again, you would have the money. The goal during a recession is to get money into your hands. In terms of times of inflation, the Federal Reserve would do the exact opposite. Remember, in times of inflation, there's too much money out in circulation, and so we need to get money out of the economy. And so one of the things that they could do is raise the reserve requirement. So once again, the banks would have to keep more of the deposits, which gives them less money to loan out, which decreases the money supply. Another thing that they could do is raise interest rates, which gives people more of an incentive to save, less of an incentive to borrow money, and once again, selling federal bonds. If they sell them, you now have the bond, and the money is out of circulation. Fiscal policy is our government's controlling taxing and spending. So they have a couple of tools at their disposal to once again promote price stability, full employment, economic growth. During times of recession, we want to get money into circulation, and so what they would do is lower taxes and increase spending, which gets more money out in circulation. During times of inflation, when there's too much money out in circulation, they would increase taxes and they would cut their spending to get that money out of circulation. And what is interesting, if you think about this, during times of recession, all of these things to get money out in circulation, a lot of times what we see is it leads to inflation. And when we try to combat inflation, when we raise the reserve requirement, raise interest rates, sell bonds, increase taxes, cut federal spending to get all that money out of circulation, then sometimes if we're not careful, that could lead us into a recession. And at the bottom there, expansions, so that's when we're getting money out into the circulation. When the government lowers taxes and increase spending, sometimes this can lead to budget deficits where they're spending more money than they're actually getting in, coming in through taxes, and then this can obviously increase the national debt. During times of contraction, where they're not spending money, this can sometimes lead to lower deficits. I put surplus, a budget surplus doesn't happen very often. So if nothing else, hopefully we can get a lower deficit spending during these periods of time.